Recently, a lot of you have joined and subscribed to this channel. So let me start by thank you for being here and thank you for subscribing. And let's go into this article. 5 articles that influenced my career. It's an article written by a senior UI developer, Nathan Long. And we read a lot of articles here, at least once a day. So let's see these 5 articles. Have you read them? I don't think so, but let's see. And if you have not, then if it will convince us to read it. So it's an article written by Nathan Long, #code, #front-end engineering. Do we build the app, or does the web build us? For nearly all of my career, the web has been both my employer and my teacher. Looking back, there are a handful of articles that weren't just bookmarks or blog posts. They marked turning points. Little pushes from fellow web workers that helped move me to where I am today. Join me for a quick romp through old history as I revisit 5 articles that helped shape my career. A flexible foundation. Responsive web design. I started my career in graphic design, and one of the biggest mental shifts in transitioning from print to web design was working with squishy canvas. You could never truly generate what size screen a user would view your design, not like you could with paper. Ethan Marcotte's article on responsive design back in 2010 finally made it click, how we could approach this new world of tiny screens. It reshaped how I thought about web design. I feverishly rewrote my portfolio using media queries, something that I was told later helped me land a job at an agency as a hybrid designer/developer. So in a way, this article helped me get my first web job. Yeah, I guess nowadays responsive web design is so common. Responsive web design is something that we do given. Even with front-end development, a lot of people say it's easier to start with phone, like design for phone. You start with that and then you expand it to web. Because the reasoning is the natural ordering of the elements is getting stacked vertically. So yeah. So that's the reasoning. So it's natural. That's natural. And as you expand it, as you want things to move horizontally, that's when you start implementing the logics. But yeah, I'm guessing back 2010, yeah, that's around the time when the smartphone was starting to get popular. So before then, responsive web design must have been a pretty fresh idea. The problem with specificity and portability. Object-oriented CSS. In the early days of CSS preprocessors, it was very common to see wild, zany selectors in a project CSS. Ultra-qualified selectors for avoiding unintentional side effects, a mishmash of IDs, classes, and element tags, or even unintentionally deeply nested selectors in a SCSS style sheet. Or maybe that was just my CSS. Several approaches came out during this time, like SMAX and later BAF, but the first one I really understood was OOCSS. It seems common sense now to separate structure and skin and create styles that work the same everywhere. But it's thanks to the work of Nicole Sullivan and others that these concepts are so deeply ingrained in our current approaches. It was also OOCSS and its single class approach that helped me understand the problem with CSS specificity and how to mitigate it. I started following OOCSS principles and watched my CSS become more durable, resilient, and portable, and way fewer important tags. I think this is something that I definitely want to do soon, because I like quite a bold statement here, but I quite like playing around with CSS. But every time I write CSS, I always feel that I'm not writing it efficiently. I get the job done, but when I look at the code, I'm like, man, it's kind of everywhere. There is no fundamental idea that holds it all together. And yeah, I think I'm not surprised that something like this exists, and I think this would really help me improve my CSSing. Number 3, Vim once, Vim forever. 100%. At least the Vim movement. Vimcasts. Around this time, I also read a clickbaity and unfortunately named article that I can no longer find called Real Developers Code with Vim. I, of course, being 100% authentically real developer, took the bait. I do not agree with the original premise, but that article started my journey into learning Vim. If that article piqued my interest, it was Drew Neal and his Vimcast series that took me by the hand and led me through a world of custom config files, model editing, and community plugins. Vim would end up being a gateway into the command line, and I started to understand how Unix systems worked. Things like how to customize my bash prompt and set up custom aliases, and naturally flowed from what I learned in Vim and turned the command line from something weird and scary into something that felt like home. I'm still using Vim today, NeoVim specifically, and I can trace back my Vim RC all the way back to 2012. 13 years later, I still feel like a wizard in the terminal. Like I said, I've been using Vim Motion, and I've been trying to find time to shift from using VS Code to NeoVim. It's just hard to find time. I think if I had a friend or a guidance who already uses NeoVim, who made the switch from VS Code to NeoVim, it would be much easier. But right now, it's just not my priority, as from what I think anyway. But I do love using command lines. I do love using Vim Motion, and I will never go back to regular motions after using Vim Motion. It's just so nice to have my fingers on ASDF, JKL, and semicolon. So I think once I make the switch NeoVim, I will really like it. Yeah. I'm really interested in I think most people would use VS Code, I imagine. And if you have any advice on switching from VS Code to NeoVim, if you've made a video on it, I would love to see it, if you could teach me. Number 4, a new layout paradigm, a guide to Flexbox. Before Flexbox landed in the early to mid 2010s, we were using CSS floats. Never heard of them? Good. Let them rest quietly in the past. Chris Coyier and his Flexbox guide on CSS tricks solidified my mental model of how Flexbox worked and helped me start creating modern layouts, things that were previously impossible, like reordering elements without altering their source order, or even making items in a row the same height, were not just possible, but easy. That's crazy. These days, a lot of times I use display flex, and it's just such a, that how to center a div, flex, justify content, center, align item, center. I can't imagine working without Flexbox. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the guide to the Flexbox, how one of the most used display options was introduced. Number 5, vanilla with sprinkles. How does widget JavaScript and stimulus controllers and widget modules? This one is cheating a little, but the two articles go together. In 2022, I was hired at Widget, which marked the first time I was 100% a developer. My entire career had been in a hybrid role with a mix of designer, developer, director, manager. This set of articles helped onboard me into a new way of thinking and writing JavaScript, and also marked my entrance into a new era of capability. Classes, modules, promises, async, destructuring, and so much more. The promise, I get it? Yeah, I get it. Of ES6 of all those years ago was not only fully realized but accelerating. Yeah, I think these kind of articles that I would learn a lot from, because I think these are things that I know how to use them, but every time I use them, I don't really feel at ease. I feel like I use them knowing the functions, but not knowing what they really are. I think it comes from my background of mathematics, where in order to use something, we'll start by knowing the definitions. And yeah, to me, I can define them. I can define them by their functionality, but I can't really define them otherwise. And maybe that's just the way it is, maybe not, but I have a feeling that there's more to it. So yeah, this kind of article sounds good to me. But it's also really cool to see that Nathan transitioned from being a graphic designer and learned how to make things responsive, and from then on he became a full-time developer. And I think this goes to show that you can keep learning and it can open up doors. And yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's not just this developer world, but just applies to everything. Honorable mentions. Before publishing this article, we talked about this topic as a team, UI development, and there were a few articles we felt we would be remiss to leave out. The front end split. Brett Frost's front of the front end and back of the front end, along with Chris Coyer's The Great Divide, helped us make sense of the diverging skill sets in front end development. What we choose to call ourselves is important, and is part of why we reorganized the front end development team here at Vidget in 2022. Componentized design. Brett Frost, again, with his atomic design, helped us start thinking about componentized design and development. This had natural knock-on effects with future tools and techniques like design systems and component-driven development. A call to share. Looking back, I can see my career not as a straight path, but a breadcrumb trail left by generous strangers on the internet. Those articles weren't just information, there were people, somewhere, deciding to hit publish instead of maybe later. The web is funny that way. It's not a library we visit, it's a living garden we tend together. Every tutorial, every blog post, every half-baked gist is a seed. Some quickly grow and spread, others quietly in corners. But all of them matter more than the author probably realizes at the time. If the web has fed you, and if you're reading this, it almost certainly has, think about what you can share back. Share your messy notes, your weird bug fixes, your I finally figured this out revelations. Someone somewhere is about to trip over the same obstacle you just climbed, and your breadcrumb might be the one that leads them out. That's a great message, I think. I think this channel, these videos that I've been making, reading articles, felt a little bit like it. At first, when I started posting it, I don't know, I think it kind of felt like just kind of, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I do it or not. And not that I don't think it's like a big thing, but recently some of the comments I get, they say that it's been really interesting reading the articles together. It's been helpful for them to find motivation. It's been really cool to see different experiences like it. It's a cool format to read articles, and just things like that makes me think, okay, like I do it not thinking much, but for some people it's helpful, and I'm really grateful for that. So yeah, I think I agree with this, that you might think it's not much. Other people already do it, other people already know it, but when you do it might surprise you. Yeah, it's a really cool article. I like the front end, so it's interesting that way, and I really like the philosophy that Nathan has introduced us. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it too. Like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye.